the uninvited companion. The sun was shy that morning, hiding behind thick clouds, as Obinna tied his last shoelace. Today was his wedding day. Not a flashy one, just a small ceremony with a few family members and close friends. He was a quiet man, a humble school teacher in the dusty village of Umuko, known more for his chalk-stained shirts than charm. Yet, somehow, he'd won the heart of Amoka, the mysterious daughter of Momanena, the village herbalist. Amoka was beautiful in a way that unsettled people, too graceful, too quiet, and her eyes, they always looked like they were watching something beyond this world. But Obinna didn't mind the gossip. Love, after all, is louder than whispers. The snake in the box. 2 weeks after the wedding, Amoka moved into Obinna's modest two-room home. She came with very few belongings, a box of clothes, a calabash of herbs, and a large black wooden crate with tiny holes in it. The crate moved. "What's inside?" Obinna asked, scratching his head, half joking, half nervous. Amoka smiled, gently patting the crate. "Izuru. Izuru. Is that a goat? Please tell me it's not a goat." Amoka chuckled. "It's my guardian spirit. A snake." Obinna's jaw locked. "Snake. Snake. Shoo," she said gently. "He doesn't like loud voices." It took a full hour of explanations, begging, and guilt-tripping before Obinna agreed to let the snake stay, on one condition: Izuru had to remain in the cage at all times. The watching eyes. Obinna tried to adjust. He really did. But sleeping at night with the occasional hissing sound coming from the corridor. That was a hard pass on peace of mind. Sometimes, he'd wake up and swear he saw something moving in the shadows of their bedroom. Once, he turned on the light and saw Izuru's cage wide open. Amoka simply said, "Oh, he likes to stretch. He's used to freedom. But this is a house, not a jungle safari." Amoka smiled and rubbed his shoulders. "You're safe. He protects what I love. Elders and warnings." After a particularly restless night, where Obinna swore Izuru was staring at him through the door, he paid a visit to Poyugana, an elder known for knowing things no one wanted to talk about. "You said snake?" the old man asked, chewing kola nut slowly. "Yes," Obinna replied, shifting uncomfortably. "A big one. Black scales. Eyes like glass." Poyugana's smile faded. "Son, snakes are not just animals. In our land, some snakes are spirit gatekeepers, protectors, lovers, even husbands. If your wife calls it a guardian, then it's more than a pet." Obinna laughed nervously. "A husband. Please, sir." The old man didn't laugh. "Laugh now. But don't ignore the fire just because it hasn't burned you yet." Strange symbols. That evening, Amoka was out visiting her mother. Obinna, home alone, decided to clean the corridor where Izuru's cage sat. He moved the cage aside to sweep and noticed something unusual. The wooden floor underneath had faint, almost glowing symbols burned into it. Circles. Eyes. Lines connecting them like a spider's web. Obinna touched one. It was warm, too warm. His heart began to pound. Izuru hissed softly in his cage, as if amused. He dropped the broom and backed away. Nights that refused to end. For the first week after Obinna discovered those glowing marks under Izuru's cage, he fought sleep like a boxer dodging punches. But a man can only sip so much bitter cola and coffee before his eyelids stage a coup. On the 8th night he finally surrendered to his pillow, and awoke in a place that smelled of wet clay and lightning. A tall, faceless man stood in swirling mist, whispering in a tongue Obinna had never heard. The words swarmed around him like bees. "Siduare. Siduare cha." Obinna's knees wobbled. He tried to shout, but the sound lodged in his throat like hot yam. The man leaned forward, and in the mist Obinna saw scales shimmer on the stranger's shadow skin. Then the voice turned into a hiss right inside Obina's ear. Live or be devoured. He woke up screaming, sweat pouring off him as though someone had wrung him out like a wet cloth. Amoka slept beside him, breathing softly. At the foot of the bed, Izuru's eyes gleamed like tiny lanterns. The snake did not blink, snakes never do, but Obina felt the gaze slide over him like a cold hand. He sat against the headboard until dawn, heartbeat drumming a stubborn rhythm, boom boom, boom boom, live or be devoured, live or be devoured. To Amoka's midnight chores. Amoka changed too, though she denied it. During the day she still cooked spicy egusi soup the way Obina loved and teased him for humming off-key hymns while grading homework. Yet at night she grew distant, like a radio fading in and out. Obina began catching her outside at odd hours, barefoot in their tiny courtyard, a clay bowl in her hands. Inside the bowl glowed a sleek, dark liquid that smelled of rain and pepper roots. She would dip 2 fingers in, draw symbols on the ground, then press 3 fingertips to Izuru's scaled head. The snake would coil around her ankles in a soft spiral, as if the earth itself were hugging her. Sweetheart, Obina whispered once from the kitchen door, trying, and failing, to sound casual. Why not wait until morning? The neighbors might think we worship strange things. Amoka's eyes flicked to him. Her pupils looked too wide, too dark. The night is the ear of the spirits, she said, voice low. And the spirits have waited longer than your fear. I had to argue with poetry at 2 a.m. So Obina didn't. He simply watched her finish, wipe her hands on her wrapper, and walk inside as if nothing unusual had happened, like a woman rinsing plates after dinner. 3 missing cats, missing chickens. Soon gossip flitted across Omuko like grasshoppers over dry season fields. Mama Ebel's caged parrots, gone, door still locked. Baba Okoli's 2 best roosters, vanished, feathers in a perfect circle by the coop. Chidra's ginger cat, Nkem, last seen chasing a lizard near Obina's fence. At night people reported a low, traveling hiss, as though a bicycle tire leaked air while rolling slowly past every porch. Children spoke of a long shiny rope crossing the moonlit path. And always, behind closed doors, came the whispered question. As the teacher's wife let her serpent loose again. Obina tried to calm everyone. He visited each neighbor, offering apologies and promises to tighten Izuru's cage. But his own voice trembled because he no longer believed his own words. For Uncle Jude's candlelit warning. Desperate for answers, Obina traveled 2 villages away to see Uncle Jude, a retired Catholic priest who now kept bees and wrote devotionals no one read. The old man met him on the veranda with a bear hug and a sharp look, noticing the dark moons under Obina's eyes. They sat at a small table cluttered with half-melted candles. Beeswax made the whole room smell like an old chapel. Obina poured out the story, the cage, the symbols, the whispering dream. Uncle Jude listened, clasping a wooden rosary so worn the beads looked like river stones. When Obina finished, the priest took a deep breath that sounded like a rusty hinge. Izuru is not merely a snake, Uncle said, voice quiet. You have stumbled onto an Ogbanj, a spirit spouse. Among the river tribes they call such a being Noki, a watcher who can love and consume in the same breath. Obina's stomach knotted. Can I drive it away? Maybe with holy water. Or enough rat poison to stun a cow. Uncle Jude actually chuckled. Rat poison. My boy, you can't poison thunder. A spirit husband is older than the soil under our feet. You must negotiate or flee. Negotiate. Obina echoed, tasting the word like sour milk. With a snake. With the power inside the snake. Remember, your wife invited Izuru. You must first understand their covenant. He pressed a small bottle of blessed salt into Obina's hand and said a prayer that hovered in the air like white smoke. As Obina left, Uncle Jude spoke one last sentence that rattled him more than the prayer. Spirits rarely surrender something they claim as bride or groom. 5 Confrontation in candlelight. That night Obina arrived home to find Amoka seated cross-legged on the floor, room lit only by 4 stubby candles. Izuru lay coiled in a perfect spiral at her side, head raised. Obina's courage wobbled like a weak table leg, but he steadied it. Amoka, he began, I visited Uncle Jude. He says your friend is an Okbanj. A spirit husband. Amoka's shoulders stiffened. Her voice slid across the room, soft as dry leaves. I feared you would go to him. Then you know it's dangerous. Obina stepped forward, sprinkling a pinch of blessed salt in front of him, a silent minefield. What covenant binds you to this? Amoka's eyes flashed like flint. Do not call him this. Izuru is older than the rivers that feed our crops. Older than the stories that feed our children. He washed me in my mother's womb. He guided me when fevers came. And you think a retired priest can label him like classroom chalk? Obina's words burst out, he threatens me in dreams. People's animals are gone. What next, children? We can't live like this. Amoka rose, candlelight carving shadows across her face. Izuru only punishes intrusion. Respect him and he protects. Challenge him and she snapped her fingers. A candle guttered out. And wind becomes knife. For a heartbeat, husband and wife stared at each other across a thin line of salt grains glimmering on the floorboards. 2 souls on opposite banks of a dark river. 6 the shape in the corner. The argument ended in exhausted silence. Obina slept, if you could call it that, on the couch. Sometime after midnight he jerked awake to a prickling chill. The candles had burned down to glowing knobs, leaving the room an ocean of shadows. He heard a soft scrape, like a boot across sanded wood. He turned. In the corner where the hallway met the sitting room stood a tall, lean figure. It seemed woven from smoke, yet moonlight from the window slid along scales that gleamed up and down its shadow skin. Obina's mouth turned to sawdust. The figure's face was a blur except for 2 eyes, round, lidless, silver like raindrops on iron. Slowly, deliberately, the creature raised a hand. Its fingers were long, jointed wrong, ending in slight hooks. It touched 2 hooked fingertips to its lips, shhh, then to its chest, and finally pointed at Obina. In the blink of an eye, the shape collapsed inward like ash sucked into a vacuum, gone. A gentle thud sounded behind the sofa. Obina, trembling, peered over the backrest. Izuru lay there now, coils settling, tongue flickering in and out as if tasting his fear. Obina did not scream. He made no sound at all. He simply stared, the way a rabbit might stare at a cobra it can neither outrun nor outfight. Somehow he found his feet, stumbling toward the bedroom. He pushed open the door. Amoka slept peacefully, lips curved in a faint smile, one hand resting on her belly as though cradling a dream. Outside, the wind picked up and rustled the plantain leaves like applause for a play only spirits could see. 7 morning after omen. At dawn, cockcrow sliced the night silence. Amoka woke to find Obina sitting on the edge of the bed, eyes red, bottle of blessed salt clutched like a lifeline. She reached for him, he flinched. Her hand dropped. What did you see? She asked quietly. Obina's voice cracked. Your guardian took human shape. He warned me without words. I don't think warnings come twice. Amoka's shoulders sagged, as though a heavy cloak settled over her. Izuru is not a monster, Obi. He loves fiercely, that is all. Obina stood, heart hammering. Love that devours is not love. He turned, walked out, and shut the door softly, because sometimes quiet noises hurt more than slamming doors. At the cliffhanger. In the courtyard the rising sun painted the clay walls gold, but Obina felt no warmth. His mind raced. Flee. Where? Spirits can cross oceans on a breath. Fight. How? Salt and prayers feel small against an ancient oath. Negotiate. With what currency? Blood, promises, or something worse? Behind him he heard the familiar soft hiss of scales on earth. Izuru had slipped beside him, head raised, eyes level with his knees. For a heartbeat snake and man faced each other, neither blinking. Then, with surprising gentleness, the serpent brushed past his leg and glided toward the garden, as though reminding Obina whose house this truly was. Obina exhaled, a single shuddering sigh that carried every ounce of courage he had left. He realized that courage, like salt, could only be sprinkled so many times before the container ran empty. And somewhere deep inside, a new fear bloomed. What if the container was already empty? A drumbeat from long ago. The rain arrived without warning that morning, thick, silver needles that stitched the sky to the earth. Obina sat on the veranda, hugging a shawl he borrowed from Amoka because all his clothes felt damp from the inside out. Amoka lit a clay lantern and joined him. She carried a small bundle wrapped in faded Ankara cloth. In the grey light her face looked softer, almost childlike, but her eyes held centuries. "I need to tell you a story," she said. "It begins before my grandmother was born. Before the first white road cut through our forest." Obina nodded, pulling the shawl tighter. "Stories," he thought, "are sometimes heavier than stones." Amoka unwrapped the cloth. Inside lay a single bronze coin shaped like a seven-pointed star, green with age. "The pact. My ancestors were yam farmers," she began. "They wanted wealth, more yams, more cows, more children. One year the harvest failed, and children died of hunger. So my great-great-grandfather walked 6 nights into the forbidden forest and begged the deity of that place, Agbayulo, for mercy. The rain drummed a steady rhythm on the roof, doom doom doom, like some unseen drummer marking time. Agbayulo answered. It said, I give abundance, but I keep what is closest to your heart. In return, my family would leave a newborn daughter at the forest shrine every 3 generations. That daughter would be marked by a spirit guardian until her dying day." Amoka touched the coin. It paused faintly, as if remembering the deal. "I am the offered daughter, Obina." Obina's knuckles whitened on the shore. "And Izuru?" "Payment," she said softly. "A guardian, yes, but also the deity's claim. 2 chains of silk." That night Obina lay awake replaying the tale. Rain had stopped, but thunder still rolled far away like giants moving furniture. He turned to Amoka. "We can break the pact." She smiled sadly, stroked his cheek. "Pacts older than our language do not snap like twigs, my love." "I will find a way," he insisted. Amoka kissed his forehead. "Izuru will not allow it." And, her voice lowered, "I'm not certain I want him to." Obina's heart stumbled. "You're in love with him." She looked away, embarrassed yet honest. "He understands me in ways words can't. He shows me visions of tomorrow, rivers that will flood, children who need herbs. I heal people because Izuru whispers how. He is peace." Obina rolled off the bed, pacing. "Peace. He threatens me in dreams." Amoka's shoulders slumped. "He only defends what is his." Lightning flashed, and for a split second Obina saw Izuru's massive body coiled under the window, eyes reflecting white light like polished mirrors. The snake did not hiss, he simply existed, huge, silent, immovable as destiny. 3 wounds of the night. Obina's determination hardened like kiln-fired clay. He began fasting and praying, visiting shrines, Googling on spotty 3G, bless his patience, anything about spirit spouses and ancient pacts. He even downloaded a PDF called Okbanj for Beginners, a terrible read, partly because the author thought emoji testimonies were a scholarly citation. That first week of resistance, dreams hit him like hailstones. Night 1, Izuru, half man, half serpent, stood over him, fork-tongue tasting Obina's fear. A single slash across Obina's chest appeared when he woke, thin as paper cut but bleeding real blood. Night 3, Obinna ran through endless corridors of chalky school walls. From the ceiling, scales rained down like black leaves. When he jolted awake, his back burned, 3 words, rising fast. Night 6, he found himself hanging over a pit of coiling vipers. A voice hissed, "Yield, teacher." He bit his dream tongue to keep from screaming. Next morning his real tongue was swollen and purple at the edges. Amoka cried as she dressed each one with herbs. "He fears losing me," she whispered. "Stop fighting, Obi. I can't bear seeing you harmed." Obinna winced. "A love that drinks my blood is not love, Amoka, it's hunger. For when bread and chalk crumble, torment at night bled into daylight." Obinna began arriving late to school, eyes sunken, wrist wrapped in bandages the children kept staring at. One Monday the headmaster pulled him aside. "You're scaring the pupils. Go home. Rest. Maybe take unpaid leave." Unpaid leave in teacher language is just a polite firing. By Friday a letter arrived, "Position terminated. Wish you well." Amoka found him sitting on the floor amid scattered chalk sticks he'd brought home, squeezing them until they snapped. She tried to console him, but he shrugged off her touch, because each time her skin met his, static fear crawled over him, as if Izuru washed through her fingertips. 5. The seer of 3 roads. Word travels faster than motorcycles in the village. Within days people whispered that the teacher was cursed, that his wife slept with shadows. Obinna, thin and feverish, took a motorbike to Ogwinter, the hill where the seer of 3 roads sat beneath a red palm, blindfolded since childhood. The man was said to speak with the dead and see sickness in a person's shadow. The seer listened to Obinna's trembling confession. Without removing the blindfold, he reached forward and touched Obinna's forehead. The old man hissed through his teeth. "Your life stream is braided with a river that is not yours. Each night, a spirit feeds, sip by sip. Can you break it?" Obinna begged. "Not I. The key lies with the one who welcomed the river. The bride must choose between 2 husbands." Obinna felt hope flicker, then sputter. He knew Amoka's heart leaned toward the serpent. 6. Fever and revelation. Illness wrapped Obinna like wet blankets. He lay in bed shaking, cold sweat pooling in his collarbones. Amoka kept vigil, wiping his forehead, crushing bitter herbs, whispering hymns she'd learned from her mother, hymns older than the church itself. Between delirious dreams Obinna muttered, "Let me go, or let me die." Izuru appeared at dusk, thick body sliding across the floorboards to coil beneath the bed. Amoka placed a hand on the snake's head, stroking him the way one might soothe a loyal dog. She whispered, "Spare him. He has harmed none." Izuru's eyes, though silver, unblinking mirrors, turned toward her pregnant belly. Except, she wasn't pregnant, was she? Amoka frowned at the thought, laid a hand on her flat stomach. A tingle coursed under her palm. Impossible. 7 Lab Coats vs. Legends. A week later Obinna's fever broke, but he remained weak. Amoka coaxed him to the city clinic for blood test. The doctor, a stern woman with coffee-brown spectacles, frowned at Obinna's chart. Severe anemia, elevated cortisol, cellular fatigue like I see in chemotherapy patients. Have you been fighting tigers? Obinna tried a joke, "Just metaphysical reptiles, doc." She didn't laugh. While Obinna rested in the waiting area, Amoka asked, half joking, if she could have a routine pregnancy test. The nurse agreed. Hours later results came back. Obinna's blood looked like an over-squeezed lemon, pale, depleted. And Amoka? Positive. Yet the ultrasound showed an empty womb, no embryo, no sac, just a faint pulsating shadow doctors chalked up to artifact. They called it a phantom pregnancy and recommended counseling. Amoka walked out clutching the report like a prophecy. Outside, wind rattled dry leaves along the gutter, hissing, "Mother, mother." A truth under the moonflower. That night under a ripe moon, Amoka sat alone by the garden, fragrant with sleeping moonflowers that open only at midnight. Izuru coiled beside her. She spoke softly, tears streaking her cheeks. Guardian, lover. Whatever name fits. I am torn. My husband is dying. My womb is strange. What price do you truly want? Izuru lifted his head, tongue flickering, eyes gleaming like twin stars caught in dew. Slowly, impossibly, the snake's form lengthened, vertebrae cracking like knuckles. Limbs unfurled from scale. Within heartbeat a tall, shadowed figure knelt before her, half clothed in darkness, half clothed in starlight. His voice fluttered like rustling silk. You asked a forest god for abundance. It gave you me. I asked for your devotion. You gave it freely. Amoka's hands shook. Obina never asked for this suffering. He asks to break what cannot break without blood. The spirit traced a finger along her cheek. Where he touched, a silver glow sparked then faded. You carry a bridge between worlds, he murmured, palm hovering above her womb. A child of root and river. Amoka gasped. A child. But doctors saw nothing. Because they see with eyes. His whisper became wind. Not with spirit. 9 breaking point. Inside, Obina awoke sensing emptiness beside him. He limped outside and froze. Amoka knelt before a man tall as the palm trees, his skin shimmering like wet obsidian, his hair a crown of tiny serpent scales. Obina's voice cracked the night. Leave her. The spirit turned. Those silver eyes pinned Obina like nails. Teacher, you hold no lesson for me. Obina, trembling, raised a small pouch of blessed salt, his last sacred armor. He flung it. Wind curved mid-flight, scattering grains harmlessly to the earth. A quiet laugh roared from the spirit's throat, deep, amused, ancient. Amoka stood, tears bright. Obi, please. He says I carry a child. Obina's mouth fell open. But, this can. A child unseen, the spirit intoned, stepping back into serpentine form in a ripple of scales and shadow. Your world will see when roots break concrete. With one silent lunge, the serpent was snake again, sliding into tall weeds, vanishing like spilled ink soaking into dark cloth. Amoka sobbed. Obina stared at the place where light no longer touched the grass. 10 thunder without rain. For 3 days the sky over Omuko roared though no rain fell. Villagers whispered that the teacher fought a god and lost. Chickens refused to lay eggs, goats bleated at nothing. Obina, gaunt but upright, visited Uncle Jude once more. He relayed the impossible pregnancy. The priest's face whitened. A hybrid child, he muttered. Scripture is silent on snake men babies. But one thing is clear, covenants bind blood more than ink. Obina clenched his fist. So what do we do? Wait for a demon toddler to crawl out. Jude offered no joke this time. We gather elders, priests, even the seer. We prepare a cleansing bigger than any we know. Because when that child forms, the forest deity will claim more than a tithe. 11 hours of 2 kingdoms. At home Amoka stood before a cracked mirror, pressing flat palms to her belly. It still looked flat, yet she felt fluttering deeper than organs. A strange song hummed in her ribs, like whale music heard underwater. She saw Obina's reflection behind her, thin, broken, love splintered but not dead. Their eyes met in glass. No words, just sheer terror mixed with stubborn devotion. Amoka turned. I didn't choose this to hurt you. Obina's voice was a dry leaf, but you did choose. She flinched. He stepped closer, laid a trembling hand on her abdomen. Under his palm something pushed back, lightly, like a curious finger pressing from the inside. He snatched his hand away. A tear escaped down his cheek. What grows in you? Amoka's whisper cracked, hope or doom. I truly don't know. 12 Hospital of Shadows. 2 weeks later, Another clinic, this time in the city of Onitsha, ran every scan money could buy. Each machine hummed. Each screen stayed empty. Yet blood tests now screamed pregnant louder than church bells. A baffled obstetrician scribbled cryptic gestation on a folder and suggested psychiatric evaluation. Obinna snatched the report and stormed out. On the sidewalk, vendors hawked groundnuts and phone chargers. Somewhere a street preacher yelled about dragons in Revelation. Obinna almost laughed. Dragons. If only he could trade up for a dragon, at least dragons are out in the open. 13. The visitor at dusk. That evening Amoka rested on the couch, exhausted. Obinna brewed ginger tea. He had just poured her a cup when the room temperature plummeted. Candles flickered blue. Izuru slithered in from the corridor, but tonight something was off, metal tiles in his wake frosted over. He lifted his head, stared at both humans, then turned to Amoka and nudged her belly with the gentlest tap, as if confirming possession. Obinna stepped forward despite the chill that nipped his bones. Touch her again, Anne. The snake's body blurred, stretched, man again, towering, face sharp as a crescent knife. His voice was barely heard yet filled every corner. Teacher. Husband. Witness. He reached out a hand, palm up. Come willingly, and I will leave your blood unspilled. Force me, and the world will know winter in the tropics. Outside, thunder cracked so hard dust jumped off windowsills. Obinna's skin goose-pimpled. What do you want? To finish what the forest started, the spirit said. He tilted his head at Amoka. She already carries the seed. Obinna swallowed. And me. A husk, the spirit said simply, as if stating the color of sand. Unless you walk away. Obinna's knees wobbled. His mind screamed, run. Fight. Scream. Yet his heart whispered, stay. Save her. Amoka reached for him, eyes wide. Obi, please. I need you. The spirit faded, smoke sucked into itself, leaving a single black scale on the floor that glimmered like oil. 14. A neighbor's scream. Just before midnight a piercing shriek split the air. Obinna dashed outside to find Mama Ebo kneeling by her chicken coop, every bird gone, a perfect spiral of feathers left behind. In the center of the spiral, drawn in chicken blood, lay a symbol Obinna recognized, the eye within circles that first burned under Izuru's cage. Villagers poured out with lanterns. Eyes darted to Obinna. Whispers spread, the teacher's curse, the serpent's wife. By dawn, community elders declared a crisis meeting. Fires were lit at crossroads, and goat skins were stretched for divination. 15. The final confession. At sunrise, exhausted, Obinna slumped against the garden wall. Amoka sat beside him. Orange light washed their faces, but warmth felt fake, like stage lighting on a tragedy. She took his trembling hand, pressed it to her belly. This time the movement beneath was unmistakable, a ripple, then a firm push, like a knuckle rapping from within. Obinna's breath shuddered. He whispered, "Are you still a virgin?" Amoka nodded, tears spilling. They checked. Sealed as the day we wed. Obinna closed his eyes. Then our child is a miracle or a warning. A rooster crowed in the distance, one of the few left alive. The sound felt small under the weight of dawn. One a new lock that never clicks. Obinna bought the sturdiest padlock the market could offer, steel jaws shaped like they wanted to bite intruders. He fixed it to the outside bathroom door, clicked it shut, tugged twice. Solid. That night he woke to pee and found the lock lying on the floor, tongue sticking out like a pulled tooth. The door stood ajar, warm steam curling from the crack. A low hum of voices, one female, one, something, floated out. Obinna's bladder forgot its mission. He backed away, heart thumping, mind screaming 2 words, hidden camera. To a tiny eye in the rafters. The next morning he borrowed a friend's GoPro knockoff, totally 4K, most of the time, the seller promised. He hid it in the thatch, lens peeping through a knothole like a nosy owl. At dusk he pretended to grade papers, red pen shaking, ears straining. Bare feet padded across the compound, Amoka heading for a bath. Soft splash. A second set of footsteps, heavier, slithery. Water lapped as if something far larger than one human settled into it. Obina's pen snapped in half. 3 footage that burns. Past midnight he retrieved the camera and tiptoed to the kitchen, only coal embers for light. He pressed play. Candlelit steam fills the mud brick room. Amoka stands waist deep in water, hair loose, skin glistening. A shape coalesces beside her, tall, male, scales glittering under an inner light. The serpent man Izuru, half god, half nightmare. He cups water, pours it down her back, it glows where it touches. He places one scaled hand over her womb, whispering words that sound like stone rolling over stone. The water brightens. Her stomach pulses with pale fire. She smiles. Not afraid, but tender, almost shy. Izuru bends and kisses her forehead, light flashes like lightning inside a seashell. The candle gutters out. Darkness. End of clip. Obina's palms went sweaty cold. The camera slid from his fingers, clattering. In another room, Izuru hissed, not loudly, but in a way that told him I know. For the village chief listens. Dawn found Obina pacing outside the mud ward office of Chief Emeka, a barrel-chested man whose words still outweighed any smartphone rumor. Obina showed him the video. The chief's lips parted, closed, parted again, like a man debating whether to scream or pray. He did neither, he rubbed his grey beard. Snake marriage. Spirit child, he muttered. If this spreads, the entire clan will panic. Help me, Obina pleaded. Or I'll be reading my own obituary soon. The chief called a hush-hush meeting, 2 elders, 1 Anglican priest, 1 traditional priest, and 0 gossip-mongers. They planned a midnight cleansing, a hybrid ritual dipped in both Bible and ancestral clay. Location, the abandoned yam barn by the river, far from curious eyes. 5 salt, psalms, and palm oil. They gathered at the barn under a bruised moon. Chief Emeka, Elder Moka, who swore he wrestled the water spirit in 1968, Father Uche, and Dibia Okoro with a god of palm oil-infused charcoal dust. Everyone clutched something holy, crucifix, kola nuts, white rooster feathers, even an expired pepper spray and someone called a Plan B. Obina led Amoka in. She wore a plain wrapper, eyes distant, as if half her mind already sat in another realm sipping moonlight tea. Izuru was nowhere in sight, but every cricket in the grass seemed to stutter in fear. 6 opening the gate. Father Uche began a psalm. Dibia Okoro sprinkled charcoal dust in a wide circle. Salt followed, drawn in a spiral pointing inward. In the center they placed a stool for Amoka. She sat, hands folded, looking almost bored, like a passenger waiting for a bus. The chanting rose. Candle flames leaned outward as though something large exhaled from the center of the spiral. A sudden cold washed over them. Elder Noka's breath fogged. He is here, the old man whispered, voice more croaked than words. 7 possession like a switch flip. Amoka's head snapped up. Her pupils stretched to silver slits. A deep, multi-layered voice poured out of her mouth. Clansman stirring dust that sleeps. Why wake thunder? Chief Emeka stood firm. Spirit, by elders' authority we cleanse this pact. Leave the woman and the unborn. Amoka, or the thing in her, laughed, a sound like dry leaves shredded by wind. Teacher's blood sweetened my dreams, yet you scraped the pot. Foolish cooks. Obina stepped forward, heart ricocheting. Take me instead. Amoka's head turned too far, almost owl-like, fixing on him. Offer noted. Death still due. She rose, Invisible wind whipped her wrapper, candles snuffed. Only the moon illuminated her silhouette, swelling, stretching, until a serpent's shadow overlay her human frame. The curse pronounced. Salt lines burst like fireworks, scattering crystals. Charcoal dust lifted into a small cyclone around her. Father Uche brandished his crucifix, sparks jumped off it, singing his hand. Amoka/spirit spoke, voice buzzing like hive and thunder. Teacher, stubborn root cracks its own pot. Stay, and watch bloodline wilt. Flee, and life may limp onward, tail between legs, yet alive. Elder Moka tried to step forward, but an unseen force slammed him against the barn wall. Timber groaned. The rooster feathers burst into flames without heat. Obina shouted over the chaos, I choose Amoka. I stay. The spirit's silver eyes flickered, maybe surprise, maybe delight. Bold mouse. Cats love bold mice. 9 collapse. Lightning, without thunder, flared inside the barn. Everyone staggered blind. When vision returned, Amoka lay on the floor unconscious, spiral of ash around her. Izuru was coiled protectively over her chest, larger than before, black scales now veined with pulsing gold. The serpent's head lifted, stared at Obina. A single word formed, not spoken, yet heard inside every skull. Decide. Then snake and woman vanished, puff of dark mist whooshing outward like an imploding breath. The barn lanterns crashed, sparks fizzling in dust. Silence settled, so heavy it bent the ears. 10 The priest's ultimatum. Back at Chief Emeka's house, Father Uche wrapped Elder Nwaka's ribs. Dibia Okoro brewed bitter leaf tea against spiritual. The chief poured 2 fingers of palm wine for everyone, even the priest didn't refuse. Father Uche set his cup down. Obina, the spirit gave terms. Live forever, or war until extinction. Obina wiped soot from his face. If I live, Amoka is alone. She may already be beyond saving, Uche said softly. The word stabbed deeper than any thong. 11 rode home, mind torn. Obina trudged home before sunrise, passing empty coops, claw marks on doors, paw prints that ended suddenly, as if lifted skyward. Villagers' curtains twitched. Inside his compound, candles still guttered. The bathroom door banged softly in the breeze, lock twisted like melted wax. Steam rolled out though no fire burned. On the bedroom wall a fresh symbol glowed, 3 circles interlocked, center pulsing. Beneath it, 5 simple words in a handwriting that was not Amoka's. Choose daylight or choose shadow. Obina slumped onto the bed that still smelled of Amoka's lavender soap and forest air. Tears he'd postponed for weeks finally came, hot, embarrassingly loud. 12 A quiet voice in storm. Morning birds chirped as if the world were ordinary again. But dread sat in his chest like a stone mortar. He made tea, stared at the steam, and heard Amoka's soft footfall behind him, only it wasn't a footfall, it was a memory. He closed his eyes and whispered, "What would you have me do, love?" A breeze touched his cheek. Somewhere, faint, her voice replied, maybe real, maybe hope whispering in his head, but it said, "Find me at the river. Before the roots drink blood," won the letter that ended a life. Obina fled. Not in the way cowards run, but in the way a man drowning in dreams reaches for land he no longer believes in. Before he left, he placed a letter on the bed where Amoka once slept. My dearest. If there's still any corner of your soul untouched by scales. If you still remember yam stew and Sunday jokes. If our love meant anything beyond shadows. Leave. Burn the shrine. Bury the pact. Choose light. I still dream of the girl with wild hair and healing hands. But I cannot stay and die slowly in her shadow. Forgive me. Obina. He folded it, sealed it with a tear and a prayer, then walked away before dawn, before doubt could catch up. To a life without snakes. He moved to Ghana, to the coastal city of Tokorodi, where the ocean was loud enough to drown memory. He thought again, history, ironically. Talked of old gods in past tense. Bought a couch that didn't creak with ghosts. Learned to laugh without looking over his shoulder. Eventually, he married Oma, a kind librarian with eyes like river clay and hands that never trembled. They had a daughter, Zara, with her mother's dimples and Obina's stubborn chin. Life, somehow, stitched itself back together. 3. The message with no return address. It came as an email. No subject. No signature. Only a photo. A woman's back walking into dense forest. A baby strapped to her side. A long black snake slithering ahead, patting the tall grass like a pathfinder. And 6 words. Amoka is missing. Find the shrine. Obina stared at the screen so long the image burned into it. That night, Zara woke screaming, pointing at nothing. There's a shiny rope in my dream, Daddy. It has eyes. Obina booked a one-way ticket to Nigeria the next morning. For return to red soil. Umuko hadn't changed much, same rose-colored paths, same loud goats, same elders who stared like statues when Obina walked past. The yam barn was gone. But the forest. It pulsed louder than ever. Locals avoided it now. Children said animals that entered never came out. Birds didn't sing near its edge. Trees leaned closer together, as if whispering secrets only they understood. At the edge of that silence, a small voice greeted him. 5. The boy who knew too much. He was maybe 7. Barefoot. Wild hair. Carried a carved wooden snake like a favorite toy. Are you the teacher? The boy asked. Obina blinked. Who are you? I'm Eru. My mama was Amoka. Obina's lungs collapsed. Where is she? The boy shrugged. She followed the whisper. Into the green. Left me with Grandma. But I hear him too now. He tapped his chest. Izuru's inside. Obina knelt. Do you dream of him? Every night. He shows me caves. Rivers. He says I'm his echo. 6. The shrine rebuilt. The boy led him to it. Deep in the forest, far past logic and reason, stood a new shrine. Bigger than before. Made of black stone, woven through with vines and bones. At its center was a large basin filled with still water. Obina looked into it and saw himself, but older. Eyes glowing faintly. Snake coiled around his shoulders like a scarf. He stepped back. Eru touched the stone. He's waiting. Mama said she was going to the source. Obina turned. What's the source? Eru smiled. Where the river touches the sky. Where Izuru was born. 7. The final footprints. Obina followed a trail only he could see, symbols carved into tree bark, little clay pots filled with herbs, a feather from the same chicken breed Mama Ebo once raised. Finally, he reached a clearing. The air was cold, unnaturally so. His breath fogged. There, on a raised stone slab, lay Amoka's wrapper and a silver scale the size of a mango leaf. Nobody. No sign of struggle. Only the hush of trees. And carved into the slab. She chose. 8. Ghost at the border. Obina returned to the village. Stayed only one night. Eru refused to live with him. My place is here now. Grandma said the line is drawn, and I'm on this side. Obina tried to hug him, but the boy's body felt different. Too cold for the sunlit day. That night, Eru whispered in his sleep. Papa, the river will find your house. The river never forgets its drops. Obina left before dawn. 9. Shadows follow across oceans. Back in Ghana, things were almost normal. Until Zara started drawing. First, it was snakes. Hundreds. Spirals. Twins. Eyes with no lids. Then she began whispering in a language no one taught her, clicks and hisses, sometimes chants that sounded far too old for a 4-year-old's voice. One night, Obine caught her stroking the mirror. "Daddy, my friend's coming through. He said he knows you." "Who's your friend?" Zara blinked. "Uncle Izuru. He says you ran." 10. The final scene. Obina sat on the porch, staring at the moon. Oma stood behind him, concerned. "She sleep-talking again?" He nodded. "She said something strange." "What?" Oma hesitated. "She said, 2 wives. 1 soul. Choose which you bury." Obine closed his eyes. Somewhere in the distance, wind rustled. But it didn't sound like wind. It sounded like scales sliding across stone. Black Circle Epilogue, the circle remains unbroken. Zara's latest drawing was pinned to the fridge. It showed a woman with a glowing belly, a man standing under a moon, and a serpent wrapped around the world like a belt. At the top, in child's handwriting, "The story isn't over. End."